Hi, I'm Jordan Taylor, and I help new and aspiring corporate trainers learn and apply the modern fundamentals of corporate training, minus all the fluff. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that bell button so you get notified whenever new content is posted. That said, we need to talk about some of the science behind corporate training. You know, the fundamentals of adult learning really haven't changed all that much since the 1970s. This is why Malcolm Knowles' adult learning theory is still so prevalent in the corporate training world. Knowles was a pioneer and outlined his findings on adult learning in his book, The Modern Practice of Adult Education from Pedagogy to Andragogy, published in 1970. A bit of a mouthful, I know. But in the book, Knowles identifies 6 core principles for adult learning, along with coining the term andragogy. And that term andragogy, used to describe adult learning, to this day sits alongside the older and even in the 70s already widely known term pedagogy, which is used to describe child learning. The 6 core principles that Knowles identified are that adults are self-directed, they bring experience, they're goal-oriented in their learning, they're relevance-oriented in their learning, they're practical in what drives them to learn, and they're internally motivated to learn. So what does all this mean for us as learning professionals? Well, take the principle that adults are self-directed, for example. This means that, unlike children, adults prefer to take control of what they do or don't learn versus being force-fed a set curriculum. I'm guessing that you, at some point, have been a part of an annual refresher training on exciting topics like security awareness or code of ethics. This principle suggests that, in part, one of the reasons we dislike these trainings as much as we do is because of the lack of control we have over having to take them every single year. On top of that, they're usually terribly built, off-the-shelf, uninspired training, so that doesn't really help. But enough about that, because we also need to touch on the principle that adults bring experience and like to build on what they already know while learning. This is why analogy is such a powerful tool to illustrate new ideas. Taking a familiar topic and relating it to a new, unfamiliar one is a great way to implement this principle, because you're building on the learner's existing experience. So as long as you can fit it smoothly into your training, leverage analogy as often as you can. To unpack the next 3 principles, goal-oriented, relevance-oriented, and practical, we should acknowledge that you may see some overlap in the tactics for implementation. For instance, starting with the why is a great way to kick off your training session. Explaining to the group straight off the bat why the training is important and how it's going to benefit them can make the rest of the training session a relevant and practical use of their time. And it may just align with one of their goals, which might include being more efficient, making more money, or being more autonomous. So just starting with the why may touch on all 3 of those principles. Another tactic to consider is discussing what problems the training will solve for your learners before getting too deep into the meat of the content. If you help your learners make the connection that your training will solve a problem they have, it will again make it practical, relevant, and may accomplish an internal goal of theirs. One of those, oh, I've been meaning to do that type of moments. If you have access to your training group's metrics or KPIs, and they tell a story of a problem that needs to be solved, use that. For instance, I once delivered a training for phone sales reps about effective closing techniques. I kicked it off by sharing their numbers for talk time, QA results, and their close rate. Together, those numbers told a story that good conversations were indeed happening. The team was just struggling with closing the sale at the end of the call. shaping those metrics into the story of a problem, got their buy-in early on, and made the training relevant, practical, and connected the training to their primary goal. So there you have it, a quick breakdown of Malcolm Knowles' 6 core principles of adult learning theory and some practical tips for application. If you found this helpful, don't forget to click that like, subscribe, and bell icon so you can stay up to date with future videos. I'd also love to hear how you leverage these principles, so I encourage you to share your best practices in the comments below. I'm Jordan Taylor with the Corporate Training Companion. Until next time.